here's one of the hearts. This is a sheep heart. And remember, human hearts are about the same size as your fist. And if we compare, we see this one is about the same size. It would be about the same size as my heart. Okay. I suggested you go around and look at outside structures. So you can see it has kind of a tip. This is called the apex. And to hold it, now we look and see its orientation. These are the auricles. They face forward. So this is the anterior surface. We have some on the right side too. So this is the left. I suggest you poke around. I'm poking. You can see how that gives way. This doesn't give way very much, and I can feel it. Much more resistance. So that tells us thicker wall means left side. So this is the left ventricle. This is the right ventricle. This is the front. There's that sulcus, a little shallow groove between them, and you can see where the blood vessel is running in that sulcus. It's hard. The one for this side is kind of hard between the atrium and the ventricle. Remember, there's one on the back, so we move in the back. So here's the space separation between the two ventricles in the back, and there's another sulcus with a blood vessel running through it there. Now we talked about the coronary sinus, and unfortunately it looks like this one, I told you some of them will be cut off. The two atria in the back, the posterior views, they've pretty much been cut off. So on this heart you're not going to see them, but they would have been here, the right and the left. Okay. Again, poking around, we might be able to see where the arteries come out. So there we go, coming back to where the coronary arteries are coming out. Remember that? Coming through there, and one going through there. So that's what you're looking for. This is fatty tissue. It's part of that outer covering, the epicardium. And there's a very thin layer, part of it here. It's kind of hard to see. If you're looking at it, there's a slight shiny part to it here, and the fat is also part of that. Okay, so we've pretty much covered the outer structures. So let's go ahead and look at the interior. And there are two ways we can do that. We can make one cut all the way across, right at around the border between the atria and the ventricles, or we can make two small windows. On this one, I'm going to make two little small windows. Okay. Well, there is something else I want you to see. The big major blood vessels, they're showing here. These are coming from the ventricles. And you can tell which one's which. This one doesn't have many remnants of it. One way is to put either this probe or a finger, I like doing fingers, and put it into the blood vessel and see which chamber you run into. So I've put it in, and I've run into the right ventricle. So I know this is the pulmonary trunk. Now this middle one should be the aorta. If I put my finger through the aorta, I should end up in the left ventricle. And I can poke it out. You can see, yes, I can feel my finger right there. I am in the left ventricle. So that definitely is the aorta here. And that fits in with the anatomy, that the pulmonary trunk tends to be near the anterior surface and the aorta buried about in the center at the top of the heart. So let's go ahead now and do our cuts. Now, this, I know there's a big wall separating the two, and I'm going to try and feel and get just on the other side of that wall. Make one nice cut. And I'm going to make one little window. Don't worry, if you don't go deep enough, you can go deeper in your next cuts. And it's usually not a good idea to make sawing motions, but makes a nice even cut. Now we're getting into the inside. I'm going to move up towards the atrium. Now I'm going to go right about at the border. And we can start seeing some of the structures of the valves. And they've stayed in good shape here. Widen this open. You can see up here, I'm just going to cut away a little bit of this to make it easier to see. Okay. So you see things that look like little tiny ropes, strings, right here. These are the chordae tendineae, And as you go down, they attach. You see there's a little swelling at the bottom of that where they attach. Those are the papillary muscles where they attach down there. Those are the muscles that control the valve. Now you look up here, and you can see there's a little flap, connective tissue flap right there. That's the actual cusp. There we go. I'm going to put my finger from the other side and spread it out more so you can see the cusp right there. Spread out against my finger and the probe. Yep. Let's cut that out so we can see a little better there. Okay, so there's the cusp. On the bottom of the cusp are attached the chordae tendineae. The chordae tendineae go deeper into the ventricle and attach to these little swellings on the wall, the ventricle, the papillary muscles. Okay, and that's these papillary muscles, when they contract, that's what keeps this valve closed. All right. Now we're on the left side, so this is going to be the bicuspid or mitral valve. And if you look closely, we may cut it up farther. There are only 2 of those cusps on that side. Now we can make a similar cut on the right side. I want to figure out where that septum is, that big wall between the 2. Cut up and look at the valve between the right atrium and the right ventricle. And we have the same thing on this side here. So I'm going to put my finger through the atrium so it comes into the ventricle, and we can see the same structures on this side. Okay. There are the chordae tendineae. There's the papillary muscle down at the bottom. And now you can see the cusp here, right here. This is one of the cusps. On this side there are 3, so this is the tricuspid valve. And we'll see it again later, but you can see the thickness of the wall there. And let's compare it to the thickness of the wall on the left side here. Okay, you see much thicker wall on the left.
Wait, I'm sorry, show me that again.
So here's the left side, thickness of the wall, and there's the thickness of the wall of the right ventricle. Left ventricle here, right ventricle. Much thicker wall. That's because this one only pumps to the lungs and back. This one pumps throughout the whole body. This space in between, you can figure it out. You can put your fingers through it. This is that interventricular septum, and a septum is just a wall separating something. In this case, it's the wall separating the 2 ventricles. There's another one up in between the 2 atria, which is hard to see in these things. But and there's another one between, a minor one between here, between the atria and the ventricles in the front. Okay. Now, while we're there, let's cut across the apex here, and we'll be able to see the wall thickness right next to each other. So now we've cut to the apex. And you can compare the walls there. Here's the wall of the right. There's the wall of the left. And you can see it's about 1/3, 1/4 the size. The right side is 1/3 to 1/4 the size of the left. And again, that's because the left side has to pump a lot farther, has a lot more resistance, and has to pump farther. Okay, that leads us to kind of look and see if we can find the semilunar valves. So we can get a better picture there of the valves. And those we can see, there are 2 ways. We can cut the whole valve open. So I'm going to go here and cut the whole valve open. And look. And if you look through here, you see there's a little flap right there. That's one part of the semilunar valve. In this case, this is the pulmonary valve. There is a total of 3 of them, so there's another one of them there. So we've gotten 2 of them. And it looks like I've cut through the 3rd one partially over there, so it's going to be on both sides there. And came in there. So those 3, these are, as blood tries to get back, these fill up with blood and they spread out like this, and they block passage of blood back into the ventricle. Now these are the ones called semilunar valves. All right, there we go. Now we have the other one. There's the one on the aorta. And if we get enough light, I might be able to see if I can, there we go. There's part of it right there. There's the second part of it, and the third part of it. We have a little smaller lamp here. We might be able to poke into there. And we might, if you can't see it really well on yours, you can use some scissors to cut down a little ways to spread out the wall of the aorta. Now spreading that out a bit. We can see the flaps a little better there. There, there, and there.
Tilt it toward the camera. Oh, there.
Let's position it better there. There we can see them. There we go. I think that's better. We can see them, and if I can try and get it closed. But these fill up with blood. As the ventricle relaxes, blood will start moving backwards, but it will fill up in here and block passage. And then right on this side, as we look right on the aorta side, we should find a couple little holes. There's one, I think. And that's where the two coronary arteries come out. Let me see if I can find them and put the probe in so we can, it should be on the front part here. There we go. Yep. So I found one. So there's the valve, and there's a little spot up here. It's kind of hard to see. There's a little hole, and I've put the probe into the hole and followed the path, and you can see the tip of the probe running down at there. That's going through the right coronary artery. And you see how it's running down and now on the surface. And if I can find the left one, it should come up on the other side too. I think, yep, there it is. I found it right about there. And we move it down this way. And now that's where the artery branches a little bit, but you can see now the probe moving as it's in the left coronary artery near the surface right there. Now, the one thing I know we haven't shown is the pectinate muscles. Now we're going to look at the atria at the top. These have been cut away, so we can look at the auricles and look at the muscle structure in there. You can see how there are lots of little ribs, folds of the muscle here. So these are the pectinate muscles, and you should be able to see those. Those are pretty easy to see. Sometimes one auricle is cut off, rarely both of them. If you see both of yours are cut off, go and find someone else in the class who's doing it so you can see these structures. And that's it for this heart. And just to show you a little easier way, we'll look at the other heart. Okay, so here's the second method you can do it. Instead of making two little windows, you make one single cut. So I'm going to start here, and we'll go all the way across, through here, right through here. And let's open it up a bit, and open it up. And now you can see again the chordae tendineae, right in here, moving down. You might want to open this up a bit, so we can come here and move down, open that up a bit. And see the inside of the valve here. So you can see the chordae tendineae again here on this side. Now we're in the left one, so this only has two cusps, so it's a bicuspid valve. There we go. There's one part of it.
Oh, wait, show me that again?
Oop, there we go. So this one is showing really nice. You can also see, I didn't talk about it too much, if you look closely, there's a slight different coloration. And you can see how it's shiny and smooth here. This is the endocardium. This is the inner layer of the heart. Right here, lining the inside. I'll show it on the right side. It's a little grayer on the right side for some reason. And I have another little light so we can get some light right in the center there so we can look. And you can see a slight graying on that inner layer. That's the endocardium. Then the middle myocardium muscle part, and then the epicardium on the outside. Okay? Now we can go over to the right side. And of course, you should have been doing the same things for the other heart, figuring out the blood vessels, which one's the pulmonary trunk, which one's the aorta, so we're not going to go over that again. You can see, let's open this up a bit more. You can see the valve on the other side. So it's just an alternative way to get in. Instead of making two small windows, you make a much bigger window across the front. And then you can open up each ventricle separately. Now these scalpels are attached with a screw, so it's not good to make sawing motions because you might damage. Not so important on the heart because it's pretty strong, but we'll be doing other dissections and it could destroy things. So you can see the little gray layer right on the top. So that's the endocardium on the right side. There we have the chordae tendineae moving up here into the cusp. So this is just to demonstrate the different technique of going in and making one cut across the top instead of making two little windows, making one big. You can also see the septum on the inside here, the separation between the right and left. Now, you can do the other things the same way, going in and looking for the valves, the pectinate muscles on the back when you move it back on the auricles. This one also had very little left of the posterior surface. The atria in the back are pretty much cut away, so you can't see the big blood vessels that come in, either the pulmonary veins that come back to the left side or the inferior and superior vena cava that come into the right side. You can see the pectinate. This one has the auricles still attached, and you can see that different structure. They're organized a little differently, so they have deep ridges here and on the left side. And that was all I was going to show for this one, just showing a different way to make your initial cut. All the other things you can do on this heart as you did, cutting across the bottom, looking for the semilunar valves with the large blood vessels. Thank you for joining us on this demonstration of the heart dissection. I hope you'll join us for further videos on the biology basics here for anatomy and the anatomy and physiology courses.